reviews that said your story lacked action or character development? Or have you struggled with how to build tension in your work in progress or really bring out aspects of a character? Well, what you might be missing isn't how to write better action scenes or more character development. What you might need to work on is your hurdles and lulls. If you are a fantasy author, then you've come to the right place. My name is Autumn, and together with Jesper, I run amwritingfantasy.com. Between the two of us, we've published more than 20 novels, and our aim is to help you in your writing and marketing endeavors. Writing is in no doubt difficult, especially fantasy writing. You have to balance creating an awesome world without overwhelming the reader with info dumps. You have to develop amazing characters and then share them with readers without telling them how really cool the character is. Instead, you need to show them. And you have to have an exciting plot, but one that leaves room for the character to take the lead. If you've had comments that your story was too slow or your character's traits didn't shine, what you might need to focus on is your hurdles and lulls. If you struggled with writing them, then you are definitely in the right place, because today we are going to look at what they are and, more importantly, how to use them to develop characters and build tension. I remember writing my first novel, and even though I knew all the steps and had heard all the tools like the 7 steps of story structure, like I mentioned in one of my previous videos, sharing the world, the characters, following the plot idea I had, and making it all exciting was a challenge. Hey, and speaking of previous videos, if you like this one, join us and our wonderful patrons on Patreon for early access to these videos, plus exclusive writing, editing, and marketing tips. The links is in the show notes below. When I wrote that first manuscript, I would spend too much time sharing the world or spend so much time with the characters that a scene would be too slow. Then I'd rush ahead to some action, and all that explanation of how they actually got there and why the reader should actually care the character was running for her life got lost. But hey, the goal of the first draft is just to get it done. It is meant to be rewritten, which I did 3 times, and a lot of work was sorting out what should go where, how to build tension so the action scenes became more intense, and how to get the reader to care about the characters, which made the tension all the more, well, tense. And a lot of all that comes down to how you use your hurdles and your lulls. So, what are hurdles and lulls? Hurdles are not necessarily action scenes. By definition, they are obstacles. They can be plot obstacles or, ideally, obstacles keeping your character from getting something they really want and need. They could be anything from that stereotypical snowy mountain pass or storm that wrecks the sailing ship to your main character needing to talk to someone, but that person's just refusing to see them. And of course, it can be as obvious as the hulking dragon guarding the door. An obstacle isn't exactly exciting. It is how your character reacts to the obstacle that gets the action going. Most likely your main character isn't going to give up and go home. They're going to go around or through and the obstacle, and depending on how that unravels is how much tension you will build in your reader. Even when facing an obstacle as obvious as a dragon, the action doesn't have to be immediate. The characters can sneak a peek and discover the dragon and formulate a plan to get around it, and of course the plan goes horribly wrong, they barely escape and are possibly separated, plus someone is injured. See, it's not as easy as walking into the dragon's side, though that could work too, and be a bit more comical. The formula with hurdles is that the main character discovers a problem, or falls into it, such as with storms and terrain obstacles. They react, usually by coming up with a plan. The plan goes wrong, and they have to come up with something else really fast to get through, which may make things worse or solve the problem. The cycle repeats until the character is dead, escapes, or succeeds. For big plot elements, the hurdle can be put aside for a new or more immediate development, such as if the person the character needs to talk to is hundreds of miles away. So now the character either needs to get there so they can, or focus on like the people hunting her down and just escape the city and worry about finding them later. So yes, based on that example, you can go from hurdle to hurdle, usually a small one to a bigger one, but be careful of this. Unless you are writing an action thriller, Hurdles are usually followed by lulls, and I wouldn't put more than 2 hurdles in a row. Other things you should know about hurdles is that the later they come in the novel, the more focused on the problem should be on stopping the main character from achieving their goal. In other words, if the antagonist is actively preventing the main character from succeeding, instead of general challenges like storms or stomach flu, or not being able to locate what they need. At this point, they know the location of the magic gem. They've gone through the mountain pass to the ice castle to get it. But now the snow dragon is controlled by the villain is, trying to eat them. And if you haven't guessed, the final hurdles are more life-threatening, or possibly being captured and stopping the whole point of the novel, the closer you are to that climax. So, what about lulls?
Lulls are boring.
Thanks for chiming in, Old McGrumpy. I was wondering when you'd show up to share your opinion. I can't imagine that we'd manage to somehow get rid of our unwanted co-host. No, lulls are not the boring bits. Well, they shouldn't be.
Not going to happen. Just accept I am here to stay. There is no action in lulls, so what good are they?
Well, lulls are the perfect time to add in subplots, focus a bit more on the world, and spend a lot more time getting to know the characters.
See, it sounds boring.
If you don't write them well, they can be. Have you ever noticed that a lot of action movies don't have great character development? And instead they rely on lots of stereo or archetypes? That is because they don't slow down with lulls that allow the character to really shine, beyond some cheesy boilerplate lulls, that is. And that is what we want to avoid.
I like action movies like that, except that the hero always wins. You just need to change the ending, not add in lulls.
McGrumpy, I think you are the lull in this video, and a bit of boring one too. Why don't you go find that self-destruct code I embedded before the video and designed to activate as soon as you appeared here?
What?
And that is a good example of how to end a lull. It should lead into the next hurdle, like McGrumpy needing to solve the problem of how to save himself while slowly being deleted from within. Okay, I shouldn't be enjoying that as much as I do. The important thing is to remember is that lulls are where the readers connect with your characters, because in the action sequences, the things are getting heated really quickly and a lot of nuances of what makes a character realistic are skipped in order to keep the pace moving. Plus, because things are slower, the point of the view of the character can take the time to look around. Now is the time to layer in the descriptions of the world. And now is the time when the characters can interact. While hurdles usually involve tension, which can fray friendships and burst into arguments, lulls are the time for resolving those conflicts and rebuilding character relationships, or at least trying to. Deeper character personalities can come to the fore as you build the scene. Speaking of scenes, what do you cover during lulls? Lulls should focus on the recovery or fallout from the previous hurdle. This can be a physical recovery, especially if someone was injured. Or it can be the emotional reaction to the previous hurdle, if someone died, or nearly did, if the friendships unraveled or deception was uncovered. The lull is the time to pull out the stops and have the characters deal with the pain and dashed hopes. While hurdles are often full of physical action, lulls are often rife with emotional reaction. Not always though, you don't have to go over the top. And if the previous hurdle wasn't dire, the emotional nuances can involve a couple falling in love. See? Subplots. Another tip is that lulls don't have to be long. They could be as short as a scene, or as long as a full chapter. If the characters have just overcome a huge hurdle, a longer lull is good. Think of a chess. When the board is fairly empty, you might move your pieces faster. When things are getting tense and there's a lot of pieces in play on the board, you need a longer pause before launching the next step. So now you know what hurdles and lulls are, and how to use them. Stay safe out there, and see you next Monday.